everybody, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today, coming to you from the Sports Interaction Studio, where we always got something to say about the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Playlog. And in this one, folks, we're going to be talking about the latest in regards to Bo Bichette. There was a move that was made that didn't involve Bo Bichette, but indirectly affects his market quite a bit, made by the Atlanta Braves recently. We're going to talk about how that does have a trickle-down effect to Bo Bichette's market, where the Toronto Blue Jays are at right now, and just the overall conversation about Bo Bichette and if he's going to return to Toronto. Before we get into it, please make sure to hit that like, smash that subscribe button, and if you have the option to do so, hit the hype button as well. So what it is that I'm referring to is Ha-Seong Kim going back to the Atlanta Braves. They have now solidified their infield, and the reason why this is important and why it is obviously tied with Bo Bichette is that it felt like Atlanta was kind of that one other team that was looking at Bo Bichette, or that a lot of people were thinking might make sense.
Yeah, big market team, the Braves. I mean, they were up there in payroll, even though they weren't that good last year, and they were missing a glaring hole at the shortstop position. They've been kind of flirting with that position for a while, ever since Dansby Swanson left. They go and they fill it out with a $20 million deal for Ha-Seong Kim. So congratulations to them, and congratulations to the Braves, and maybe congratulations to the Blue Jays, because you just lost one more suitor for Bo Bichette, because it does impact this market quite a bit. John Morosi came out here and said the odds now of Bo Bichette going to the Atlanta Braves, he would say, would be extremely low, because Bo Bichette's one of the best hitters in the market, maybe in some ways the best hitter. He hits good pitching, he hits all kinds of pitching, he's a threat from the right side, and now they got that guy in Ha-Seong Kim. He can play great shortstop, so they might not want to go and get Bo Bichette. So this obviously is great news for the Blue Jays, who have that option still available for them in the back pocket.
It does feel, honestly, like Bo and his whole market, man. It's not developing, I think, the way that he or his representation would have wanted it to. You know, like, obviously Toronto is there, and they're waiting, but we kind of expected, or at least I kind of expected, a little bit more pushback from some other teams. And at the beginning of the offseason, you were hearing, well, you know, Boston was in on this, and then they jumped out immediately.
They go in the room and it's like, okay, we heard your number, now we're out.
And we're just out.
Which tells us a lot. We'll talk about his market a little bit later, but that tells us a lot.
Tells us quite a bit as to what it is that he could or could not be asking right now. But then you had Atlanta, and it felt like, okay, well, they could play in this market, they could do this thing, and they prioritized the defense in Ha-Seong Kim, literally the polar opposite right here of Bo Bichette. Point being, the market for Bo isn't developing like it should, and that is why a lot of people are thinking, hey, maybe he just returns to the Toronto Blue Jays because he has loved it here. We've obviously loved having him. Buck Martinez was talking recently, I believe it was with MLB Network, and he was just, again, and he came in and he said he has no insider sources on this. This is just Buck Martinez representing Buck Martinez.
Just vibes.
But if anybody knows baseball, it is obviously Buck Martinez. He said, I think Bo at this point in his career would love to stay in Toronto, finish off his career with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Also, just to pause right there. We've heard Bo say that
many times.
We've heard him say that.
I mean, let's not forget, like, man, people always like want to, you know, do detective work and dive into what he says. Like, if you just take what he says at face value, he wants to play with Vlad. He wants to play with one organization his entire career. Like, hello, let's put the pieces together here.
Exactly, right? And Buck goes on to continue to say, I don't have any inside information about that, but I would say it's probably a strong 8 out of 10 that Bo ends up back in Toronto. Love that he pulled out the odds there, because you know at Blue Jays Today, we'll just whip out odds out of our ass regularly. Feels like that what happened right there. But hey, Buck Martinez knows ball. He's saying 80% of the time, he gonna be a Toronto Blue Jays.
And we'll whip out our stats, I think, at the end, because we got to go through a lot of stuff. But, like, honestly, you know I've been thinking, like, Tucker's a really big possibility here. And if you're an OG, you know I've been talking about it quite a lot. I'm actually starting to believe, just based on the way his market is developing, it might be more likely than not as well that we also could get a Bo Bichette possibility. We'll talk about that. What do you think about that?
I think, honestly, Tucker is the big roadblock here, because the rumor or the reports have come out saying that Tucker is going to be presumably signing before Bo. Morosi came out and spoke a little bit more about just what's transpiring between the Bo market and everything like that, and how it relates to Tucker. He said, because the Tucker market will impact Bo Bichette, we do not expect the Jays to get both. So that's the latest right there. It is a one or the other scenario. It certainly seems as though the Tucker decision will come before the Bichette decision. And for me, when I hear that, so if we can't get both, we're already getting to the odds here.
Let's do it.
I don't think it can be 80% of the time for Bo.
Because
both of us have come out and said we think like 50% of the time they get Kyle Tucker. And if you can't get both, well, obviously it can't be 80% of the time for Bo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like a crazy person right here, but I wouldn't rule out completely that they cannot get both. Like, it's not like you get one, it's like, all right, automatically you're not able to get the second one, because depending on how Bo Bichette's market develops, you might see a possible 1 or 2 year deal, maybe a player option year. If he's not getting the price tag he wants, ladies and gentlemen, on the market, if teams are laughing him out of the room and leaving those conversations, his price tag's gonna get lower and lower. And if he wants to get that big buck deal, he might need to do what some players have done recently, sign a 1 year, sign a player option, right, to opt out right after the season and get the big contract. So if that's a possibility for him, why not return to Toronto, even if they got Tucker back? That's low commitment for Toronto. They're pushing all their chips in the middle for 2026. Why not? That's why, for me, I'm not saying it's completely out of the question.
I get it. I do understand it. John is saying that it's unlikely, but still a chance. You're telling me there's a chance. I'll tell you what, though. There wouldn't be a chance if this is what his contract would look like. But we're going to push back pretty hard on this. TSN came out with an article like 8 hours ago, and they just looked at I believe it was the 5 biggest remaining free agents, and they did the projection of their contract and an updated projection. Now, McDaniel right here, he had an original projection of 5 years, 130. At the time, if he made that projection at the beginning of free agency, I would have said, hey man, that's a little low. That feels a little disrespect, just a tiny teensy little bit right there. But he went on and he upped it here. And that's what I don't understand. McDaniel made an updated projection, 5 years, 150 million. And I just want to say I disagree with that wholeheartedly, because it feels like Bo Bichette's market is not developing at all the way that he wants it to. You brought up the Boston Red Sox, how they walk into a meeting, they're excited, they want to get this guy, they want to build their window some more. He lays down the number, they walk out, they don't give him a call back. That's what the reports are saying anyways. Okay, we're not in the room here, but that's what people are saying. There's concerns about his defense. There's concerns about his ability to run the base paths. And then also one thing that McDaniel brought up in this article is that an executive was saying that there's concerns about the injuries. Because obviously 2024 was one big shit show, and then you saw him get injured for a small period of time in 2025. So there's a lot of red flags right now circling the Bo Bichette market.
Yeah, and that's why I believe a lot of people are leaving the room when he wants to get, Pete Alonso money, or even more than that, right? Like, think about what Pete Alonso got 5 years, $155 million, and he was healthy all year, multiple years of lots of home run power, lots of high OPS. Yes, Bo Bichette is one of the best pure hitters in baseball, but you're right. The health is an issue. Pete Alonso can't run either. And I'm not too familiar with his glove, so I don't want to speak on that, but he got that kind of money. But Bo Bichette, you're right. You toss in that wrinkle of the injury right now, and he hasn't played, like he said, over 132 games in the last 3 seasons. So that's a big issue right now. And yeah, you look at the fielding, like, it's not just like, okay, well, he's not one of the best defenders, but you still take him. He's quite literally the worst defender in baseball. So that is a liability if you're looking to play defense and have a good pitching staff as well. Yeah, at 27 years old, going into age 28 season, the sprint speed's not there. And we've been seeing it on Blue Jays today. We've been thinking about Bo Bichette as this base runner who can, make something happen on the base pass. Well, over the years, it's been lowering. I'm going back in time right now.
Yeah, look at 2021, 75th percentile in sprint speed. I remember back in those days, I kept screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm like, why aren't we running Bo Bichette more? Like, we have no stolen bases on this team. And it felt like he was a bit of a, young, spry guy. Back in the day, he was. And then you go to 2025, and it is a pretty dramatic fall off there, folks.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like it's a DH. Like, you're basically, if you want to sign this guy for a long-term deal, you have to know that he probably will be a DH one day.
And a DH with no power, which is honestly a really scary thing, because you brought up Pete Alonso and you're referencing his market. The upside with Pete Alonso is that one season he hits 50 bombs and has an OPS of like 950. You're never gonna have that upside with Bo Bichette. Like, we've probably seen the best, like what the ceiling could look like with Bo, I don't necessarily see him as being a 900 OPS guy, because that does require some of the power to eventually come in. His best seasons, probably a low 800 OPS, a fuckload of hits, and a batting average over 300. And right now, it feels like teams aren't willing to pay a pretty penny for that. Now, I saw this one tweet right here, and I think it is, honestly, it's from a Yankee fan. It says Yankee World on it. So
this guy does some trolley stuff, but,
we're giving him a bit of media coverage right here. But I do think he's got a point here. He said, now that the Braves have their shortstop, where exactly is Bo Bichette going if the Blue Jays decide they're only paying Kyle Tucker?
Right.
And he makes a good point. We were looking over at the MLB standings, everybody, just kind of refamiliarizing ourselves with every single team in baseball. And it does feel like, unless his market comes down substantially, there's not a whole lot of other suitors out there that are going to be interested right now.
We cherry picked some, and obviously this is just our opinion. We don't actually know, but based on the way the market's going, like maybe the Red Sox could go back in the room if he lowers his price a bit. Maybe he offers a shorter term deal, right? You look over, maybe you could, convince yourselves the Tigers do something like that as well. Maybe you have somebody over here in the NL East. Like maybe you could do the Phillies. I don't know. It all depends if he plays second base. But you're seeing right now, there's not a lot of room of a lot of teams that want to give him what he wants right now, and they're valuing him the way he's valuing him. The only team I think really values him the way maybe he close to what he sees himself as is the Toronto Blue Jays, right? Like, they love the camaraderie. They want to bring him back. And again, to my point, if he's not getting what he wants, it makes all the sense in the world for him to just suck it up, take the 1 year, take the player opt-out for 2027, go test the market again, and do it as a second baseman. Because right now, people aren't sure what you are. Are you a shortstop? Are you a second baseman? Some people think you're a third baseman. That's crazy. Go be the best second baseman you could possibly be. Go back to free agency and go get that money next year.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that's kind of where this needs to be headed. And that would be a pretty decent spot for the Toronto Blue Jays if they found themselves in, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that they still need to 100% pursue the Kyle Tucker market, because ultimately, like, he is a game changer. And I'm even starting to talk myself into some of these red flags with Bo Bichette and getting a little concerned about the longevity of what that could look like. Kyle Tucker, not a lot of red flags right there. We're just check marks across the board. But if you're in a situation where you do manage to bring in Kyle Tucker, even if you miss out on him, but Bo Bichette's market is now deteriorated to a point where it is a 2-year or a 3-year deal, but there's an opt-out after year 1 or an opt-out after year 2. I mean, that to me is pretty awesome, right? Like, you're not locking yourself in forever. You don't have to deal with the floor if the floor eventually comes, because, hey, he's just going to hit free agency again in a year or two. And it still helps the World Series window right now. So honestly, the Atlanta Braves, them going out and making their move, great news for the Jays. One less suitor for Bo Bichette. Terrible news for Bo Bichette's market, because, like, I don't even know what that is right now. But Toronto has to be in the driver's seat for these sweepstakes. Yeah, they do. And again, guys, I know I sound crazy, but do not count out maybe both if that market regresses to a short-term deal, because then you get Kyle Tucker. That's the core right there. Bo Bichette becomes the gravy, on top of what could be an amazing roster. But guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. It's $4 a month to become a YouTube member. Shout out and thank you to all of our YouTube members. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. And as always,
go Jays, go.